All right, so new video.
Hey there, James. Yet again, talking about MRE. This is TB Wright. Did edit and read through your new work within the humanitarian daily ration continuum. It's called MRE. And we spoke a little bit about the MRE humanitarian daily ration connection. But what I want to talk about here, I want to get into the main character, Sean Glass, and the clone soul dilemma there. I couldn't help but recognize some of these Christian themes emerge. Sean being a devout Christian himself, but also a clone, and naturally, there's going to be some sort of a concern there. Are clones and transhumans exempt from the gift of salvation? This would naturally run through the head of a clone. I think you captured that. And then, are there perhaps Nephilim and eunuch biblical parallels? These are a couple of things I was considering, and I'd like to kind of get your thoughts on some of that. Anything that hasn't been expressed here.
The uh, the model that I used for the transhumanism was more embedded in uh, the ancient Greek mythos. Okay, the involvement of Hephaestion with Achilles and Thetis, strength, force, and Prometheus, and the gift of technology to men, and how this resulted in an offense to heaven, very much like the Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
So, but I had the Tower of Babel is like really up there; it's on Mars.
Yeah, right.
So
Reached even further
I'm more curious than anything.
into the
I'm not
cosmos.
a science guy. What I do with science fiction is somebody gives an idea. Okay, what if this happened? What if there was an ice age?
Yeah.
That's like, okay, can we set it in North Carolina? Yeah, okay, so what if there's an ice age in North Carolina and your position in North Carolina, what's that going to be like? I kind of go with the social evolution that's going to result from like an extreme difference in the human situation.
That's the alien anthropologist in you. Yeah.
Right, because I'm not a technology guy, so I'll have people will posit like, what if, like I've done time travel like four different ways,
Right.
because I don't have a horse in the race as far as that goes. I'm just curious, and
Yeah.
that would be for me any
What are
science
the
fiction
social
premise.
implications of that? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what the science fiction premise. And the combat is just fun. I talked to Sean about this after we were discussing his training when I was in a hotel room after I had done training somebody else in another state, and I asked him about this, and he said that would be interesting. And he said, but if the character based on me is going to be a clone, I said, yes, it would be a clone of you. He said, that's going to be terrible because that clone is going to be Christian and he's
Yeah.
going to be exempt from salvation. You know,
Quite possibly. I mean, if you
and it's
look
going to be a problem. It's
if
going to
you
be
look
a problem.
biblically, the Nephilim are the children of angels and angels and women on earth.
That's what came to his mind.
Uh-huh. And so with that, they're abominations and thus are exempt from salvation. There's even theories posited that demons themselves are the lost souls of the Nephilim that still roam the earth.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then, I'm thinking of the book of Enoch. As I read MRE, I couldn't help but, you're talking Prometheus,
Yes.
right? And the offense to the heavens, to heaven, right, to
Yes.
God Almighty. In the case of Prometheus being Zeus, you've
Yeah.
suggested as much. Yeah,
Zeus's two primary names. It was not Zeus. Zeus means thunder chief. So referring to Zeus, just as Zeus would be like the Hebrews referring to Yahweh as just the pillar of cloud,
uh huh.
just the
Ooh, yeah,
appearance of what escorted them
the
out. Okay,
visage. Yeah,
but the and the visage that only Moses could look upon, and even then it transformed him. Now the two major titles that Zeus is most often known by was number one is God Almighty. Okay,
yeah,
number two is Father of gods and men, and number three is Time Holder. which he works at. He's the one entity that can work
Which
outside
is
of
interesting
time.
because Kronos, his father, is time. And
And
then
he
you go to
imprisoned him.
Persian mythology and you've got Zervan, who is the god of time, essentially, that precedes even Ahura Mazda being the chieftain god of the Persian cosmology. So there's a lot of parallels there, aren't
Yes,
there?
and they consider themselves to be cousins. So there were very close friendships between ancient Greeks and Persians, working relationships. They would swear oaths to the same god.
Wow.
Or they wouldn't say, "Okay, we're going to swear to Zeus, son of Ahura Mazda." No, we're swearing an oath to God Almighty in the guise of binder of oaths. So he's got 21 cult titles that are like specific functions that only he does.
Yeah.
And then all the other aspects of creation are actually managed for him by what we would conceive of as angels. And
Right.
there's only one angel that even
Or
knows
the
where
little
he's thinking.
G gods being
Right.
angels, or being the pantheon of gods in pick your poison, right? In whichever cosmology you want to describe, at least from a biblical standpoint, there's big G God, who is the creator of all, and then the little G gods, which aren't gods in the Western, isn't God in the Western sense of the word, but are rather lesser angels.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so what I decided on Mars, if you had these different technocrats, these people like Bro Yates and Jefe Bezos and these types of people, they would really frame themselves as like the gods of
Right.
gods.
They would assume the monikers of these demigod,
But they're
Herculean.
and they are in heaven, but they're still subject to these powers that they're still trying to grasp to understand. And I decided.
Well, I think they evade such powers, these people, these transhumanists. Their whole prerogative is to life extend and thus
That's their problem, but
avoid.
they've got the big theme in both the novels that unites them is there's a comet coming to hit Earth.
Yeah.
And everybody knows it like 50, 60 years out. So the rich people got to Mars and they left the proles down there to die.
Right.
Okay, but now the rich people are so sick of Mars, they can't wait for the comet to because they think it's going to be a near miss and maybe melt the polar ice caps, okay, cause a bunch of flooding. And so they're already sending an advance team that's like a suicide team down there just to see if some areas that they have picked out.
Yeah, because they're also remote monitoring via these personages, right?
Yes, so I decided when Matt gave me that idea, 4 days later, I'm on a Greyhound bus to New Mexico from Colorado. And when I got there, I was like, okay, this is better than Colorado. You're away from the Yellowstone Caldera blast area, which you're not in Colorado. You're still, something like this happens, the Yellowstone Caldera might go up, and there goes 5 states.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was on the Laguna Plateau, which is about 7,000 feet high. It was very dry, but you could see I'm on an extinct lake bed, and there's canyons are like walls, like fortresses, and there's a lot of petroleum being pumped up there.
Yeah.
So I thought, and it's very slimly populated. It was the 3 of us are like the only people within 10 miles. I thought this would be a place where you could maybe try to colonize a wetter Earth that takes a lot of moisture from the tail of a comet. Because there are theories that a lot of our water that we have on Earth has come from brushes with comets.
Oh,
and
yeah.
We've gotten some of the meltwater has come to Earth. So I'm going with that. And this would be a place where you don't want to be in some place like Phoenix. It's a bowl that's going to get flooded, or LA, you're going to get washed out to sea.
Right.
You want to be in a place that's not
Or like
volcanically
Houston,
active.
Texas, you're in trouble. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I picked that. I thought that would be a place. And when I got there and I looked at it, I was like, you could film a whole Western in these 3-box canyons.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice.
It was just and it was very easy.
Picturesque.
For me. So the first thing I did was after I wrote the Mars stuff, the first thing I did before I wrote the first chapter that takes place on Pyrean is, which is basically the corporate name for the Earth that's been abandoned and set back to a natural state as much as possible. I did a map I called the battle space of what this place looked like, because I went around and I walked the property. I found some pot shards. So all the locations that I use here are places that I walked, like during the time period when I was writing it.
Right.
Although I only wrote, like, I think the 3 initial action scenes when I was there. The rest of it was all written in that motel in San Jose.
Right, but you had already, just as in typical LaFond fashion, you visit a place, you take it in, and then you express it on the page, as you did with Humanitarian Daily Ration that precedes it.
And Sean's, like, to me, Sean's a real life action hero.
Yeah.
He's a guy that's still getting better as a fighter and as a person and as a leader in his late 30s. And he's got a really deep conscience.
Yeah.
So I thought that being his clone would be that would be pretty rough. That you would be in a huge
Torment, right?
But the clone would be driven to live up to the example of his model,
right?
Just like we would want to live up to our forefathers if our forefathers were strong and they were known for something.
Oh, sure.
And I have a 12th faction on Mars that is led by the clone of a Christian leader that was assassinated last year, not too long before I started writing this novel.
Right. Yeah.
Which was a young guy. So there's actually a pastor for Sean's clone, and there is I metaphysically. After I framed it in terms of the Greek mythos, I used the Book of Job.
Right.
For the inspiration. I selected quotes out of the Book of Job when I was on the train, and then I used them, and because the idea was, this is what Charles Church, the pastor for Glass's clone, would have coached him in terms of the Book of Job for what he was about to experience.
You actually open each of your chapters with a Bible verse as well. So I've gathered.
That was to get myself in a mindset of the character, the Sean character. If he had been prepared, if he had been briefed in a Christian manner based on that.
Yeah, it's a meditation for sure. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you.